Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode 21. My guest today is Mike Kars. He's the person behind the music of Altus, Loanword, and Burlord. And I'm really glad to have him on the show today because I consider myself a fan of his music and his compositions, and I wanted to have an interview with him that was firstly for persons who have been following his work for a number of years now, and for people just discovering his work. I think this is a great insight, a good place to start and learn about Mike himself as well as the music he creates. So I invite you to spend the next hour and 45 minutes with us. I know that's a bit long in this modern time, but have fun, enjoy. It's very insightful. We talk about the creation process, Mike's history with the music, and how he came to be where he is as a music creator, and a few other things in Mike's life that you might enjoy learning about. So thank you for being here and enjoy the interview. Hello and welcome, and I'm really happy to be introducing my next guest. His name is Mike Kars, and I've been following his work for a couple of years now. So I'm kind of new to the Altus and Loanword scene, but I'm nonetheless thrilled to have him on board for an interview today. So Mike, welcome. So glad to have you.
Thanks a lot, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's I admire the music. So sometimes I do interviews about people who write books, and I only have the book for maybe 2 weeks and get to read it. But I've got a little bit of a history with your production, and as probably a lot of your listeners, I like to take your work and do my thing with it. I don't really do anything bad to it. I like to So like in editing and digital audio workstations, you can do things to tracks. Yeah. But as I mentioned to you, we had a conversation the other day. It's like, your stuff, I don't touch it. I just put it in and I put other stuff that I like around it. So yeah. I'm sure there's others out there that do that.
Absolutely.
So again, welcome. And let's go ahead and get a little background from your life, and as well how you came to be where you are now, and the influences that steered you in the direction of your musical development.
Right. So I guess I could say I've always had a pretty, definitely a humble beginning. Started back in 1993. I had discovered a program. Well, I guess I should go back a little bit farther. So there's a music format that originally was originally on the Amiga and came to PC. I don't know if it was in the late 80s, but definitely in the 90s, called mod format. It's a track, and it's what's called a tracker. So okay. I had been listening to these basically through BBSs, downloading this music and listening to it, and just fascinated because the way this format works is it's based on samples. It's not synthesized sound, it's actual samples, and you can play the samples at different frequencies, and in doing so, you make music. So anyway, listening to this music, fascinated, and one of the programs I had was it actually showed the programming that was used to make the sound, and it's essentially like playing a spreadsheet. It's the way you actually program the music.
Okay.
So inadvertently, I was learning how to create music in this format, and then in '93, finally, I had discovered a program called Mod Edit, and I lost my mind because I was like, oh boy, okay. I remember being really, really pissed off because I had discovered this program sort of last week before having to go back to school, and I remember being really mad because I'm like, I could have been making music all summer if I had found this program before.
Right. But then
so from there, just making music. And the way it worked is you could just load in other songs, pull the samples out, and use them in other songs. So I just took all the samples that I could find out of all these songs and made my own music out of them. And so that up to 1995, I upgraded to a program called Fast Tracker, and then in '96 Fast Tracker 2, where I made the majority of my music.
Okay.
So the original program mods only supported 4 channels of or 4 channels at playing at once, whereas Fast Tracker supported up to 32. So once I got to that point,
Mm.
suddenly I was able to do so much more sonically because it just gave me that more flexibility.
Okay.
And then still moving into the trackers into 2000, I used Mad Tracker, which was a Windows program. And then in 2002, I discovered Fruity Loops, now called FL Studio. And I've been using that program from 2002
Okay.
till now
Okay.
to actually make the music.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, it's been a fun journey,
It's
learning the entire time and still learning today.
yeah, and your work evolved sort of along the same curve with the technology, right? I mean, you were jumping in and getting that technology,
To a
and
degree, yeah. To be fair, all this software was, well, except for Mad Tracker and Fruity Loops, but the Fast Tracker and these mod edit programs, they were just freeware programs. There's
okay,
no money involved, so there's no barrier to entry. Just learning how to use the program was your barrier to entry.
okay,
Um, but yeah, I guess my point being is I've always computers have all, like, thanks to my dad, computers have always been a huge part of my life.
okay,
And so where most other artists would have gone more towards like actual synths and
hmm,
hardware and gear and all that stuff, I've always just stayed with the software because it's just what I've always been doing, what
hmm,
I'm super comfortable with doing. And I mean, to be honest, with the power of computers and the wealth of plugins that you can get online, either purchase, sometimes free,
right.
uh, for me, it's like, why would I buy all this hardware when I could just do it right on my computer?
Absolutely. And that was a sort of a joke on me when when you and I had our pre-meet and we were talking, and my vision of Mike Cars prior to that conversation was you being this sort of, in your lab, in your, lair with all this gear with racks everywhere and Euro racks with cores, maybe not that dramatic, but
Yeah.
I had this vision like Steve Roach on steroids. But anyway, so it was really neat and uplifting to know that what the amazing soundscapes that you create and the music you create um, is accessible to people who are willing to commit to that learning curve of
Yeah.
understanding a DAW or like FL Studio One, FL Studio and Studio One, and even I have a sample. I think I got the free Ableton 10 Lite or something on this computer over here,
Yeah.
and I've been sort of poking at it a little bit and watching a few tutorials. But yeah, there's accessibility there. Like you said, it's just you're limited by your ability to apprehend what they're doing on those systems, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially with this kind of music, I've gotten emails over the years where people say, your music has inspired me to try and do this myself. And I'm like, yeah, do it, because it's
Yeah.
all you need is a passion or a strong interest, at least.
Hmm.
Because yeah, there's a learning curve in just trying to figure out how to use these tools and sort of, tweak and do all sorts of weird stuff like that.
Right.
But there's no, because there's so many free tools, including instruments that you can just download. Like, go to KVR, Google KVR, and you'll be inundated with a slew of free plugins that you can get.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's so awesome that it's like, but of course the downside being there's a lot of music out there. Good luck. It's not easy getting your stuff heard. Like,
This is true. Yeah.
I've been doing this. Well, I sort of seriously started sharing my stuff online in 2005, and that's when
Okay.
I sort of created the name Altus.
Hmm.
Before I'll talk about the name I was using before that was Goon, which is very inappropriate. It was fine for the stuff I was making back in the 90s, because that stuff wasn't ambient at all. It was all just
Right.
beat stuff and
Yeah. Might be
electronica
more
and stuff like
appropriate.
that. Yeah, but I had never changed the name, and here I am making this like soothing ambient sort of new agey stuff called Goon. It's like,
Dune. Yeah.
no. So that's when I'm like, okay, I need to come up with a new name. I did a English to Latin dictionary online, and I found Altus, and I'm like, and I like the meaning. It means, well, it has multiple meanings, but it can mean like a high point, but also like forget exactly what the full definition is, but basically I think it's alt as in altitude. I think that's
Yes.
what
Uh-huh.
where
Okay.
it's anyway.
Yeah.
It can mean high and low at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
There's more to it than that, but that's sort of a generalization. What I didn't realize how much the word Altus was going to be used by so many other companies
Oh, I know.
and other bands, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do the
that's
Google
always a
search
pain.
and you'll get these corporate things showing
There's a
up.
lot of corporate, yeah. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of corporate. I think there's
That makes sense. It's
headphones
like,
called Altus headphones and stuff. It's
right.
like, okay.
Well, it's kind of like, Zenith or what's the one, Paragon or something like that. It's like the high end, the penultimate of what we can be kind of thing, right? So yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
the trade-off in that.
when I decided to start creating music under the name Loanword, I did a lot of Googling to make sure, okay, so
Yes.
anybody else
Yeah.
making music under the name Loanword? No. It's very, yeah, so it's not a real word, so that's a bonus, obviously.
Right, right.
So yeah, hopefully it will stay that way.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And if people do, well, you'll have things time-stamped, right? I
Yeah,
was
I mean,
Loanword
that's
in
it.
2018 or whatever.
2018 or
So
whatever it was when I
yeah,
started using that name. Yeah.
exactly. I have a similar story with one of my YouTube channels, not this one, but I have a botany and horticulture channel that I run. And for the first few years, I think I activated that account in like 2008 or something. I called myself Dullard 69. So 69 being my birth year, and Dullard, which I've just always thought that would be a great name for a bluegrass band or something, like the Dullards. There's the Dillards. There was a bluegrass band called the Dillards, but
Yeah.
I just thought Dullard was such a beautiful word and way underused. But then I started populating my channel with I've got like about 1,100 uploads of quasi serious kind of explanatory, expletive or explicative horticulture things that are so I had to change the name because I'm like, this just doesn't serve my brand, and so I changed it to Plant Spotter 69, which is more dignified. And then people got upset and they're like, why'd you change your name, dude? I had these followers, like, I guess they like Dullard, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying.
Make sense.
when a real botanist or a real horticulturalist comes to my channel, there's not much dignity there to begin with, but let me at least have a proper name. Because I gaff and I don't have the information. I'm an amateur horticulture guy. So anyway, so we all have our we have to be careful when we pick our names. Like IdeaCast, because that's the name of the series, I said, well, okay, let me just double check. And there's like the Wall Street Journal had this very brief run with or one of those larger news outlets had IdeaCast podcast, and there's very little content that I could discover. And so I'm hoping that stays with me, and if it expands, I don't care. I'm not going to get worried about it, but anyway.
But yeah, it's one of those things. The ultimate idea is like, if someone's going to Google you, you want to at least show up first so that people find you, and not somebody else.
Yeah, relevance. Absolutely, exactly. Absolutely. So you are using, again, ostensibly computer formatted music making. Let's talk about your musical influences growing up. So you can go back as far as you want, and where this journey began and how it evolved.
Yeah, influences are never what people expect. People, I really, like, to give you an idea, it was only, well, I guess it's been a little while now, but it was only 10 years ago when I finally heard Eno's music for airports. Like, I had never heard it before. But it's one of those things where people sort of assume, like, oh, you're into ambient music, you must have heard this seminal album. I mean, it's like, no. Actually, I haven't.
True confession, I've not heard of it.
Yeah.
I've known Steve Roach since the early 90s, but I've never heard music for airports. So anyway, go ahead.
So in terms of, like, into the 90s, the Orb and Orbital were two big electronic bands, I guess you could call them, that I really enjoyed and definitely influenced my early work. And then it was 1999 when I started discovering the ambient style that I make. So it was Pete Namlock, and Steve Roach. Those two guys really opened my eyes. I discovered their music through on a radio online streaming thing. I'd just gotten my hands on broadband internet,
Okay.
so I was just like discovering this music. I'm like, oh, what is this?
I
Like,
know.
oh,
Yeah, it's amazing. It is.
man, you
And
want to
he's,
talk about inspirational stuff? Like, man,
yeah.
so yeah, in terms of the ambient side, and then obviously from there, just exploring so many other artists. But really, again, it was Pete Namlock and Steve Roach were really the catalysts
Okay.
for the kind of stuff that I was making. So
And
yeah.
Steve Roach is so supportive of the in my naive interpretation of what's going on of the ambient music creating community. I think early this year and it's probably been going on for years, he had the I don't remember the name of the festival, but he was platforming a lot of people who were just in their rooms generating their sounds with their racks and all that. But that was fascinating. I watched, it was all virtual, and I don't know how long that's been going on, but it was really neat to discover.
I think he's doing it this year. I know he does in-person workshops where people actually go to him.
Okay.
He has with his wife, I think she has like a ranch or something like that.
Yeah, they're in Patagonia, Arizona.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I know they do sort of multi-day workshops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know he's been doing that for a while too. So yeah, just really, yeah, like you say, he's just, I mean, he seems, I've never met him, never spoke to him, but he just definitely seems like a pretty down to earth kind of guy, obviously.
Yeah,
really,
from what I can gather.
Yeah, just easy to talk to, so it's cool.
Absolutely. I was in Santa Fe a few years ago for a week-long conference, and Steve Roach was just getting ready to play, or he had just played, and it's that weird phenomena when you're traveling. It's like there's always a band that was either there right before or right after you were in town. I was like, oh darn, and it was an amphitheater too. I think it would have really been a nice experience, and it was cold though. It was in the winter, so I don't know how comfortable it would have been, but that would be neat to see him in a natural setting like that out in the desert. I'm in the swamp, so the desert's mystical to me. If I go anywhere out west, I'm like, whoa, this is beautiful. Hills. Florida's like Indiana with palm trees. There's really not much going on, so when you can get out to those mystical places, it's always amazing. So, and now you're inspiring people, which I think is great. Your name will come up in other conversations when people are like, well, what inspired you to create this music? And I think you're in that league now. Not the Steve Roach league. No. But
you want to talk about imposter syndrome, Jesus?
No. And I'm not going to project that on you. I'm just saying that there's probably a group of people out there that are referencing you and me. I mean, I was telling you on our pre-meet that I've taken Audacity, and I subscribe to a stock music track service, and I torture other people's music just to kind of stretch it. And it's not that I'm trying to emulate you per se. I'm actually trying to match what you do with my meditation music that I create. And so so it's at that cheesy little level all the way up to proficient musicians who are being inspired by you. And I think that's great. I think that's how we help each other.
Again, it doesn't really matter, what your level is in terms of professional or amateur or whatever, you know what I mean? The tools are there for you. And it just comes back to, if it interests you, nothing's stopping you from just doing stuff like that. And you learn, again, I've been doing this for so long and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I hope I never stop learning, it's so much
fun.
Right.
Yeah. There should never be an aspiration.
Boring.
There's no destination, right? I mean, but just our conversation the other day got me to thinking, well, I've got Ableton over there. Why not, get some plugins and maybe some virtual synths and start working with that. And if I don't like Ableton, then I'll get the FL Studio that you're still using that, right?
Yep.
Are you still okay?
So yeah, I use FL Studio for the actual composition.
Okay.
But what I do is I'll export each instrument as separate tracks and bring that into Studio One.
Okay.
And I do the final mix and mastering in that. I find it's just, it's the way I've always done it, and I just prefer. Essentially, at that point, you're bouncing from MIDI information to an actual audio file, and then you're actually editing the audio file at that point. So So yeah, it's just sort of putting a polish on it basically in Studio One is what I'm doing. Yeah.
So that brings a question to mind. Do you bring your reverb, or do you work with your reverb in FL Studio
Yeah.
before you export it out? Okay, so
Yeah,
all that's
the only
handled.
effects that I'm really using in Studio One is like EQ, uh,
Okay.
mostly EQ. Really,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm doing. I don't use a lot of compressors or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially it's just EQing, adjusting, fine tuning the level of each instrument, and then just getting the level, getting the overall level to where I want it to be,
Mm-hmm.
so that it sort of matches everything else.
Gotcha. Taking notes here, mental notes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your most recent release and what's sort of the mindscape behind that. So
Yeah.
hypoxia. Let's talk about
So
hypoxia.
Hypoxia was, although I did just release at the beginning of October 2021, it was something that I had created, well, sort of I think it was early summer to late summer of 2020 during the first wave of the pandemic. And so during that time, I live alone, not being able to see family, not being able to see friends for months, and I'm an introvert. But even me, I was like getting to a point where, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is getting a little much.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I definitely got into a funk. I wasn't really in a great headspace. And
Mm-hmm.
I played a game called Soma from Frictional Games. And it was, I'm a big gamer,
Okay.
and it, it should have been something I had been playing given my mind space, because it's a pretty dark game, but it does really explore some interesting concepts
Okay.
just in terms of storytelling.
All right.
It takes place underwater, and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where you're basically deep in the ocean floor. And it reminded me also of James Cameron's 1989 film The Abyss.
Oh, okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've seen it. Basically, near the end, he goes into this sort of experimental dive suit that's basically filled with oxygenated water,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes down. It's to disarm a bomb that's going to blow that was going to that was put down there, to blow up some aliens. Anyway, that scene, that whole sequence where he's just falling deeper, deeper into the dark, it just, something that's always stuck with me. It's very, I don't know, it's not creepy. It's, I don't know, profound. I don't know. Anyway, it's something
Well,
that's always stuck with me, and Soma reminded me of that, and so,
okay.
so this is where the idea for hypoxia came from. Was the story is, you're disconnected, or either the listener or third watching a diver or whatever get disconnected from the surface, and you're just going down, down, down.
Mm,
And that's the course of the whole album, basically.
okay.
And yeah, it explores some really dark and moody moods,
Mm-hmm.
but it really helped me get out of my funk in the end. So yeah, basically when I was finished it, I put it away, because it was not something I wanted to release at that point in time, like
Okay.
sort of late summer 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are still going through a lot of shit. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I
this
get
is
it.
not the kind of music I want to be sharing right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's what I say. I waited until sort of, again, October of this year,
Yeah.
2021.
A little bit of cloud parting going on, maybe, so that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I wrote something to the effect, just like, we're not out of this yet, but we're
Yeah.
hoping to get out of it soon. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. You don't want to do it when we're in the trough. If we're riding a wave up, then that might be the time, because yeah, there is catharsis in music, and there is introspection in music, obviously.
Yeah.
Under overstating the
Yeah,
obvious there,
because
but
I put it out there. You never know how people are going to react, if it's going to be positive or negative, and yeah, no, I've received a number of emails and just messages and stuff for people who listen to it, and they go, like, they get, this is sort of the whole pandemic experience. This is a global experience. No one,
Mm,
like, this has never happened. I mean, certainly not in my lifetime, where
right.
everyone in the whole world has experienced a similar thing,
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. You
so
can't.
yeah, so basically, and that's what I say is like in listening to this music, yes, it's dark, but you can get catharsis out of it,
Mhm.
and yeah, I have received messages from people who have, so that's nice to know.
Absolutely. I can remember being in my mid 20s, and there's a sort of, they call themselves Cabaret now, but Project Records, out of, first they were out of California and then they moved to Chicago, but they put out some really heavy stuff like uh, Black Tape for a Blue Girl,
Yeah, okay,
Thanatos, Love Spirals Downwards, things like
yeah,
that. And I always found that to be very uplifting because it's so hideously morbidly depressing that I'm thinking I wasn't sort of like chronically depressed, but I could be depressive. And I just thought I'd listen to that music and it would uplift me. And so
yeah,
it's almost like giving kids speed for ADD. You'd think it would make them even more, but it regulated me in a sense that I'd get out of my own funk and get out of my own headspace of
yeah,
gloom, and just that music. So it had a nice, again, cathartic releasing effect. I could let the
yeah.
musician feel miserable for me, and then I'd feel like, hey, my life's not so bad. Do you read the lyrics in that song? Jesus Christ, man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, that
It's all
reminds me
relative.
of I discovered through project. I'm just gonna find.
In fact, that's how I found Steve Roach, was through the project,
Yeah, because I
their
know he
catalog,
releases
because
stuff through that.
he
Exactly.
had done a collaborative effort. I'm damned if I can remember who it is now. I've got the album somewhere in my collection. Oh darn! But they had some beautiful acts in there that weren't like hideously depressing. And of course, I'm drawing a blank because it's been 25 or more years since I've looked into any of their stuff. Um, anyway,
Yeah, one artist I discovered, it's stuff he doesn't really release stuff anymore. Like I had project was it was just through their Bandcamp page, and their I don't know, it just I just started listening to it. And it's Soul Whirling Somewhere.
oh yeah, they were good. Hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I discovered that. I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
what was it, 2016 or something like that.
they used to
And
release.
yeah, just he's just the guy. He's just, oh my god, the
Yeah,
guy has issues. It's sad, but it's just, yeah, you can sort of, I don't know, take part in his misery, and for some reason it
yeah,
feels good.
yeah, yeah.
It's
The
weird.
Faith in the Muse was on that label too, and I'm trying to. There was one group that's from. I think they're from Italy. I could put it in the description below when I
Mm.
finally get to remember or think of it. They're great. They're really gorgeous music, but it's not. They used to release. I think their samplers for their artists were called Beneath the Icy Flow, if I remember right. And there was a
Mm.
volume of those that would have a song from each of them. And there's a album, if we're getting into the holiday season, Dark Noel, if you can find that. That's a
Okay.
great one. They do Christmas covers, and there's yeah, there's some real gems in there too. And anyway, yeah, that's a great label. As in fact, I've managed to make cyber friends with a gal that's in Love Spirals Downward. I'm probably,
Okay.
hopefully gonna. She said yes to an interview, so I'll get her on
Nice.
eventually. We're like
Awesome.
cyber buddies on
Spoilers.
Facebook. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But her voice is really nice, and so I'd like to get her on board and just. She's living a different life now, but
Yeah.
that was some nice music. So, um, all right. So, anything more to cover on hypoxia, or should we
Yeah. So
move?
yeah, no, I think that sort of covers pretty much everything. As I say, I'm really happy how it turned out. I guess the only other thing I can mention about hypoxia is uh, the root for it, or where I started, was actually the second to last song, which is called "False Light,"
Okay.
and that goes from sort of a very sort of dark soundscape and slowly morphs into sort of a orchestral, really what's the word I'm looking for? Dissonant
Okay.
orchestral part.
Okay.
And that was inspired by the Solaris soundtrack by, I'm trying to remember his name.
The recent film Solaris.
The recent one, yeah.
Okay, because there was a Russian film, I think,
Yeah,
in the
I
'80s
mean,
called Solaris, but
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
That's a good surreal movie. I don't remember much. I saw it maybe 8 or 10 years ago.
Yeah,
What was his name?
72 is the
72.
original.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the Slayers I'm talking about is from the one from
It's the
2002
recent
with
one.
George
Okay.
Clooney, Steven Soderbergh.
Okay.
But yeah, Cliff Martinez, sorry, that's the composer. Uh, Really interesting soundtrack.
I'll have to check it out.
And yeah. So anyway, that was also sort of inspiration, sort of stemmed from the Slayers soundtrack at one part of it near the end.
Okay.
But
Speaking of
yeah,
speaking of inspiration, can you talk to Strength of Fate, which was something that came out, I guess it's been a while. It seems like you just released it, but I guess it's been a
no,
while.
it's been
That
a
was
few
different
years.
when you premiered that and I listened to it. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a
Oh,
different
actually,
direction.
okay. Sorry, it feels like it's been forever. I think it's because it took me almost a year to actually put it together. So I released that February 2020.
Yeah, I just looked at the date and I'm like, geez, it's been that long? Because it seems like it came out last February, not the February before that.
So Strength of Fate started as what I was originally planning was more of a post ambient / post rock, and what it turned into was like prog rock,
Okay.
which I don't listen much of, but I know it exists because it was one of those things I was sharing it with people who are like, oh, this sounds like this and
Such and
that and
such.
all
Yeah.
these groups from the 70s. I'm like, oh, I've never, I know of their names, but I've never heard their music,
Right.
sort of thing.
Inadvertently channeled some of
Yeah, yeah,
it.
exactly.
uh,
You want to talk about an album release where I was like, see how people react to this?
yeah. Just let it
This-
out and wait for the explosion.
and in my description, I'm like, this is not ambient, just FYI.
Yeah.
And it's like, this
Listener
was,
beware.
yeah, listener basically was listener beware in the nicest possible way. And I got so much positive feedback, people saying, you do you, like, go for it, have fun,
Yeah.
like, people saying this isn't really my thing, but I that's cool, do what you want to do, like, that's cool. And you're like, man, talk about supportive listener base,
Right,
like, you
right.
guys are so awesome. I love you guys.
Yeah, no, that's awesome that there was no negative pushback.
No,
But
yeah.
I think maybe that's the vibe of the crowd is that, people who can get into the really soundscapey ambient music, they're probably a little more, I don't want to generalize, but, more accepting because I'm all over the place. Like I can listen to the most evil black death metal as long as it's not too shrill and dissonant, but if it's got melody to it, I can listen to the worst death metal you can imagine. In fact, I love their names. Death metal is such a funny
Oh
genre.
yeah.
Corpsessed from
Corpsessed.
Finland, of course. Yeah,
Oh, I
but
love
yeah,
it.
instead of possessed, they're corpsessed. Like they're gonna one up the septic factor. But anyway, but they're pretty good. They've got anyway. Or I can go into jazz. I can go into new age. I don't do country or rap that much anymore. When I was younger, I had a stomach for
Oh
that.
yeah.
I gave up on
Definitely
country music
open.
long time ago. It just got so cheesy and commercial. Although I did find there's a channel on YouTube. I just recently found it's more of a pure, and it's the millennials. They're taking over this little niche of like very traditional country folky kind of music, and it's called Western AF, and I can imagine what that stands for. But it's a pure country. And there was a woman, Farrell, and I'll damned if I can remember her first name. Gorgeous voice. She's kind of little mists of Patsy Cline and Dolly Parton. I have to do her justice and find her name. But anyway, they do pure country. But yeah, like I said, I'm all over the map, not to go too far on a tangent about my taste in music, but so I can get into ambient,
So Strength of Fate was originally called Solastalgia, and I'll go into that a little later.
Oh, interesting.
That's still something I'm planning on doing.
Okay.
So, because the themes I wanted to explore in Strength of Fate was completely different tangent, and what the music started just coming out of me. I had the way I generally work is I almost always have to create track names before I even start creating the music. I sort of
okay.
And so I had these track names built up, and I started making the music, and I'm like, this music does not match my original vision, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So yeah, so I just went in this completely different direction because I was really enjoying the process. It was talk about not getting into a rut. This was me getting out of a rut, I guess.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it is what it is. I don't. I am going to try another stab at doing a more ambient post rock, sort of like Sigur Rós
Oh yeah. Oh, I love
style.
cigarettes. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's my plan. So yeah, that's the name of the album is Solastalgia, which is a
Mm.
word I heard on the radio a few years ago, and I was like, what's that mean? And they were
Hmm.
talking about well, they were talking about what it meant, and I'll give you the Wikipedia short one. It's describes a form of emotional distress caused by caused by an environmental change.
Okay.
So
Soulstalgia. Is that a portmanteau
solastalgia.
or is it a genuine like
I
like a combined set of word or pair of words
well,
or?
yeah, because I think it's like nostalgia. You have
Hmm.
solastalgia sort of thing.
Okay.
So, but the idea is think of a place or a location that you knew as a kid that you might have hung out as a kid, and you
Okay.
go there as an adult, and it's completely changed.
Yeah.
And it's like so this memory. All that's left is your memory of this place,
Okay.
and sort of a longing for what was type
A
of
return
thing.
to that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
so yeah, so that's what
Nostalgia.
I'm gonna try for, and again, more of a post rock ambient form. So there will be a bit of drums, guitar,
Okay.
but not so not definitely slower. Basically,
Okay. Okay.
we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes because I don't know. I tried it once
That's
and it
well,
went a completely different direction. So who
yeah.
knows?
We'll see what the Mike Cars of a couple weeks or months from now does, right? You're you right now, and there'll be another iteration of you expressing it's not quite literally an iteration, but
Yeah.
yeah, you got to be open and ready to be bold and creative. And I know on your website you mentioned that there's a sort of cutoff from Altus to Loanword when it comes
Yep.
to the ambient soundscape music that we all know and love, and then
Yep.
where you're going to be more flexible. So I like that you're partitioning, and Loanword's going to carry that traffic for the ambient crowd like myself, but
Yep.
also we get to see what's going on with these future projects. So Soulstalgia, is that it?
Solastalgia.
Solastalgia. I missed a syllable there. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
And Sierra Farrell was the name of the singer that I couldn't
Okay.
think of a
There you
few
go.
minutes ago. So do you have going back to sort of your trademark ambient soundscapey music, are you thinking about something for 2022 in that regard? So like Inner Space and Black Hole, are you thinking like any more of that kind of aspect of your creation?
So yeah, for on the Loanword side, what I got planned, and I do have two tracks I think sort of sketched out called it'll be called Pallid Memories.
Palette
And
members. Okay.
Pallid Memories. And the idea is again, so much of my music sort of you talking about nostalgia. My music, that's something I really I guess I'm just a nostalgic person. I'm always thinking about the past
Oh yeah.
and stuff like when you're a kid and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
anyway, that's sort of what I'm going to be exploring. Sound wise, again, I don't know how it's really going to sound yet, but yeah. So that's something I'm going to be working on soon, maybe.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
like I say, I started and then I paused. So it's definitely, but yeah, it's definitely something I'm going to be. If I haven't started working on it this year, it's something I'll be sort of first thing in 2022. Yeah,
Okay.
and then and then another Altus on the Altus side is a spiritual successor to Pioneer,
Oh,
which
okay.
was a big hit. That
Hmm.
was 2018 when I released that.
Hmm.
So that's more of a sort of Berlin school. Lots of arpeggiations, very synthy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I the again another really weird name which I made up, sort of. You want to portmanteau, oh God, can I pronounce it?
It's okay.
Anthropa aliena. The idea is that
Anthropa aliena.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the idea being, so in the original album in Pioneer, you are blasted off into a ship and you're off to another galaxy or another uh, yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
basically, you're going far away from Earth, and you're basically landing on another planet to start a new colony, whatever, with a bunch of people. And the idea on this one is, okay, you're on that planet now, and it's like, okay, what sort of fun are you gonna, just sort of getting a colony started and stuff like that.
Right.
In case it was not, for those who are again going into video games, this is sort of my love letter to the Mass Effect series.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So anyway, so yeah, if to anyone, if you enjoyed the again the more arpeggiated sort of Berlin school songs on Pioneer, you're gonna enjoy this new album because it's gonna be focusing primarily, almost all entirely, in that style.
Okay.
Whereas Pioneer was sort of a mix between sort of more ambient and Berlin school. This one's going to be much more active.
Interesting.
Yeah, and again, that was the idea with where it's like, if you want the slow stuff, go to Loanword. Altus is sort of not speeding up, but just exploring a lot of different sounds.
It's breaking out of that, ambient
because that was the thing. Because originally I thought, well, I'll just keep using Altus for my ambient stuff and choose another name. But here's the thing: if you go back through my discography, there's a lot of music that is not ambient already. So I thought, well, you know what? That's why. So for Loanword, that's why I decided to use that one for my ambient stuff. Like, let's start fresh, right from the start. It's got a set sound, so to speak, sort of a set mood or whatever. So at least it's consistent.
Yeah. And people like that. You're weaving a tapestry. I think if with a particular sound. And so if there's consistency there, I probably speaking more for myself than maybe other people, but as somebody who definitely admires a certain, what is it? Je ne sais quoi. Something about your music that resonates with me. I could pull segments of your music out and say, oh, this is the sound that's been not available to me until now, and I'm just rejoicing in it. And anyway, being regaled by it, I should say.
Yeah.
It's funny, you were mentioning portmanteaus, or we've been mentioning them, and I thought I was so clever a year or two ago. I came up with satisficient. No, Justin, you didn't come up with satisficient. People have been using that word for it, but I just, like when you're a kid, something pops in your head, and you're like,
yeah.
And they're like, nah, kid, it's been around for 3,000 years. Don't worry, keep going. So but I'm glad it's being used because it makes kind of sense, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many fun. I love language and words. I mean, I guess we could have a whole conversation about that, but we'll stay on topic and stay with your music. So, do you want to take a moment at this point and talk about playing a little segment for the audience, and you can set that up, and then we'll play that and then come back, and then maybe we can talk about some things that are orbiting around your life that aren't Loanword and Altus, and then we'll go from there. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can show you maybe a track or two from Pure, which is again Loanword, and that was released sort of summer 2021.
Okay.
And was my attempt. Because again, I say I write ambient music, but a lot of my music is very sort of grabs you by the shoulders sometimes and like, pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my attempt with Pure was to be as real ambient as in wallpaper as possible, while still having like an emotional core. Because that's what I'm always sort of aiming for, trying to. I don't know. I really passive ambient doesn't do anything for me because I don't know. I guess I just want to be moved by music. So that's always my sort of goal when I'm making music. So yeah, I'll show you the software.
Okay.
And just sort of how it looks, and we'll take from there.
Okay, so we'll go into that, and then we'll come back and carry the conversation. back. And Mike, so go ahead and explain what we were watching there.
Right. So that song was called Pass By, and is sort of it's again when I start a new piece of music, I'm often going in like blank canvas. And for a lot of people, I hear people say blank canvas is the scariest thing. But I find for me is just like I just see possibilities. And so literally I'll just load up the instruments I use very, very few instruments, but I'm very, very well versed in them as a result. And so I can literally just load it up, click a random patch, and just start playing and just sketch ideas. And so basically it just starts with that sort of bed of sound, and then you hear this piano slowly coming in. Now, obviously I just played just a section of the middle there, but again, trying to be as simple as possible, but having each note resonate, or resonate not literally, but like within you.
Right.
Every note
strike a chord, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you
puns.
think about it, it's three descending notes and then sort of a little melody playing alongside it, but the melody again is just do 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 do, like that's all it does, along with the other. And that's the song is close to 10 minutes long. But I've had people go, I want it longer. Like people really, really, really enjoyed that track. So anyway, it's always interesting how things turn out, because so rarely do I have an idea. That said, when I do have an idea, 99% of the time it's in the shower, and I'm like, I'll get this melody in my head, and I'm like, I'll just keep looping in my head, drying myself, running downstairs.
Right, don't lose it.
Just putting it in the computer before I forget.
Don't lose it. Yeah. I have great ideas when I'm out on the road somewhere doing mundane work, and I can never bring them back because I'm getting too old. I have to have something right there on the spot. So it's tough. It's tough. Middle-age problems for me. But so while we're kind of peeling the cover back and looking at some of the wiring under the board, let's talk about, because I had brought this up to you in our pre-meet, about the sort of the waves and the oscillation of the phrases, some of the phrases in your music. So you said you would explain that. So I'd be curious.
So you are not the only person to make comment on how my music seems to come in waves, and people really enjoy how that makes them feel. And the reason why is, so a lot of ambient music is, the more on the droney side of things, it's very static. And some people really like that. Like, it's a great way of masking noise, right? Like, so if you're trying to relax, you're trying to sleep or something, it's perfect. But for me, my ears are extremely sensitive to sound. And it doesn't even need to be a harsh sound, but if it's just like a constant sound, it just grates on my ears. So, I make a point of essentially modulating the volume. I'm not actually doing that. It's just the way I'm playing the stuff. I'm playing a chord or whatever, and then you let go for a little while so it fades out, and then you do something else. And so it creates, like you say, this sort of wave effect. And so the main reason why I did it was to combat ear fatigue in myself. But yeah, the obvious side effect of it is it creates this sort of very floaty sound to it. A great example is Silver Shores from Excursion 3. So that song's about half an hour long. And for the most part, what it is it's a 1 minute loop. Now, it's not actually a loop, but there's little variations in each retake of it. But in that case, what I do is I have like 6 or 7 different instruments, and they all sort of take a turn over that. So it creates like a progression, but it keeps coming back to the start again, and it keeps looping. And so it's like a little mini song within the song. And I don't know, but ultimately by doing that, you're getting, sort of these new sounds coming in and out, and you're not getting bombarded by this same sound all the time, like this bed of sound, just like.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, that's the reason why I do it, is because my ears are, I don't know.
No, that makes sense. And you mentioned that in your inner space just explanatory video, where drone can be kind of obnoxious, and I love drone if it's done right. And I think you're doing it right. I think you're making it dynamic, or it's not just, there's drone and then there's good drone, I guess.
Well, as I say, the idea is to just have it modulate so that it's not just, like you say, just a consistent sound, that the consistent levels, the timbre changes of it over time. That's sort of the idea. So.
And I will say, from the perspective of somebody who uses your work for meditation, that those waves, as we're calling them, are really great when you're meditating and you're down in whatever brainwave state. And because for me, it just pulls me along a little further into that, where my objective in meditation is to get out of my narrative for a while and just be silent and shut this stupid chatterbox up in my head. But those waves
that's the same problem I have.
Right. The Buddhists call it monkey mind, and it is. You want to, when I, like, the first half hour of my meditations are me telling myself these, like when you're trying to sleep in the middle of the night, your brain's like, okay, this is the time that I want to, and so anyway, the waves are really good for knocking that out for anybody that might be curious. So and then to speak to voices, literal human voices in your music, and you've done it really well. The Tornell Keep is really powerful. Was it Drinking from the Spring of the Earth is really nice as well. So those are, if you could speak to those.
So because you did ask, was that collaboration with somebody? And I was like, I wish. We
build up these narratives when we don't know what's going, which is good. You could be like, oh, sure. This is some fabulous, amazing Italian opera singer. You haven't heard of her yet because she's too cool for you. Anyway,
So the majority, whenever you hear a voice in my music, the vast majority is from a sample library from East West called Voices of Passion, which seems appropriate for my kind of music. But it's just a whole sample library where you can sort of mix and match different ideas. Now, you mentioned Tornell Keep, and I know you want to talk about the book. That's connected.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So
good segue. In fact, if you want to riff on a tangent and just talk about the book, and then we can get back to music,
it's just,
either way, or we can pin that for a minute.
Interesting thing about Tornell Keep is that's a little different in that I don't know if it's actually Voices of Passion has it, but it's definitely from East West, and they have what's called word builder, and what you can do is you can type in phrases, and then you can play them, and it basically has all the vowels, sort of so you can make them say things. It's very, very basic. But it gives you a sense of, she's saying something as she's singing. And that's basically how I did it, was using this little word builder add-on to the plugin. So it makes her speak.
And there's a term for that in singing. I know Lisa Gerrard was really famous for that in the Dead Can Dance, a lot of her music. And there's actually a term for where you're not speaking a language per se, but you're vocalizing and you're just putting out. What is that?
Well, we talk about Sigur Rós as well, their Untitled album, where it's just the brackets. There's singing in that, but he's not singing anything.
It's not intelligible language.
It sounds like he's speaking, like, as an English person, it sounds like he's speaking, because he's Icelandic.
Some Nordic language.
But he's not actually in that case. But it sort of sounds, and it's really, really, really interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard that album, but it's great.
I don't know. I love Sigur Rós, but I don't know their catalog that well. I just know what I find on YouTube, and I'm like, just always swept away by it. So
but yes, I don't know what the term is either. Because
somebody will comment. If you know, please. And yes, but I've heard it before, but it's been buried deep.
The singing in Tornell Keep, she's not actually saying anything. It is just vowels and consonants and stuff like that.
Which is still so amazingly powerful. And I don't want to, I had a friend who loved jazz and funk music, and he's like, I don't like lyrics. I don't like singing. So, and especially in like jazz, there's really not a lot of lyrical content, but there's women who will do that. You know, they'll do the da 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 da, you know, and but I think there's a time and place for lyrics, and I think there's a time for the voice to just be, you know, in flow. Although unless it's Latin,
in its way, yeah.
right? Unless it's like Gregorian chant and it's in anything French and Latin. I could listen to things in French and Latin, and they're so poetic and sing-songy and so forth. And anyway,
in a way, it's kind of I know what you mean. In a way, it's sort of good. You don't actually know what they're saying. You can just enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a singer the other day named Palm, like the apple, and from France, and she has some very high-end like orchestra behind her music, but just a lovely little voice, and a sylphish gal in her 20s, and beautiful voice. But the French, when she sings in French, and there's Etiel, I think, Etyl. She's from like the early 2000s. French. And then even France Gall, if you like, there's something called Yee music from the early 60s, and she did that Serge Gainsbourg's, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's Laissez Tomber Fili, or Hands Off the Girls. And I'm Anglophone all the way here. I don't know French. And I wish I knew French phonetics. So I apologize to French speakers for my destroying your language. But anyway, and then somebody named April March covered it for a Quentin Tarantino film, or Robert Rodriguez. It was like Hang Up the Chick Habit or something. But it's that Serge Gainsbourg had a great ear, and it was just that dum 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 da da dum dum kind of cadence. And anyway, if you want to Google that, it's I'm on a tangent, Mike. I apologize, but it's just French music, French lyrics. Anyway, so let's see. So I asked you about singing and vocalization, but yeah, that to cap that off, I mean, it's so powerful, and there's something primal about that. I think I don't know where in our lower brain parts that's tickling, but just the voice, and to have it pair well with music, whether it's a male voice or a female voice, to me doesn't matter, just as long as it's, you know, harmonizing with the music. It's just so powerful. Talk about evocative.
And it's a situation where, if I could ever sort of, well, we can talk about collaborations for a little while. I'm a terrible person to collaborate with, unfortunately.
Well, I know you've done some collaborative albums, right? Yeah,
I have.
Oh no,
I checked again. I've done 5 different collaborations across the last 20 years or so. There have been many others that nobody knows about that have been failed collaborations.
Ooh,
and it's never like ended poorly or anything like that. It's not working.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
And part of the issue is, well, I'm a terrible control freak. And I need to be. Well, it sounds stupid to say. I need to be inspired. If I'm not inspired and like 100%, not like, this is kind of neat, the stuff I produce is just trash. Like, it's just garbage. It needs to come from the heart.
Okay.
And so it's like, you know, people go, oh, why don't you make music for TV or games or movies or something like that? And it's like, I would need to be so inspired by the project to be able to produce music to fit it. And so that's why I sort of say, I've had people ask in the past and stuff like that. Nothing's ever come of it. But it's a situation where I generally say, just choose from my library of music, and I can tweak, do other things if you like. But to write something from scratch, it's not easy. Again, the music, it's always been such a personal thing. So, and but like when I first, well, I mean, even to this day, but I've always created music for myself first. It was music that, well, it's how I express myself. Like I'm always stumbling over my words, and yet somehow I'm able to express myself better with music, and how I feel about things, and just life. Who knows, right? So, so all of that to say, when I work with another person, be it as a collaborative, like another artist, or in a project where there's other people involved, and possibly getting, notes back and forth or something like that, I get so. I just want to close the door.
Yeah.
And I always feel bad. And so, the last couple, well, for a while now, people will come to me with an idea, and I'm like, ooh, that does spark my imagination. But I just say, I'm like, listen, I'm a really terrible person to work with.
Yeah.
I know I just put it up front, and I'm just like, I can't guarantee this will get finished. And people are like, nah, that's cool. Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Don't worry about it. And there's
Yeah.
never been, well, at least as far as I know, there's never been hard feelings.
Okay.
It sucks. Nothing came out of a collaboration that might have started or something like that. But it's just like, I'm just not feeling it, Whereas I guess other people are willing to sort of power through it and see what comes of it.
Mm-hmm.
If it feels like I'm just getting dragged through the mud or something. I mean, that sounds terrible. It's not what I mean, but
well, it might feel that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, but it's not the person that I'm working with that's causing it. It's me,
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. I just.
It's because you're creative, Mike. That's why you're an
I
artist, right? We'll put it under that roof. You're an artist, and that happens. I mean, but I would also say to counter that and just to throw this out as a suggestion, there's a possible world or a world of probabilities that there could be a project presented to you, and I know nothing about a lot of things, and post-production and music scoring is one of those things I know nothing about. But in what I went through a film stage for a while, and I love the behind the scenes and making of. Anytime I watch scoring, that the guy, the composer, seemed to have control, and they were sort of working in post with the film, and they obviously know the script, and then they're watching the whatever the draft is that's on the screen, and so it's almost like you would have that. I would hope that autonomy to fit your vision to a visual media. I mean, so would you be concerned about like producers and people sort of behind your shoulders, stopping you from doing things? Or is it just that the interface between the visual media might be like, I'm not feeling this, I can't score this, or, where would that tension be coming from, do you think?
Yeah, no, and that's it. It's as soon as I get into a situation where someone goes, oh, this is good, but can you try this instead? And they might give like a vague idea, and I'm like, I just can't work that way. I wish I could, because I would love to be able to work with other people, be it again composer, other musicians, or again in a in a either film, games. I mean, again, my stuff I do feel would be great for the right game project. It would make for great background music.
Right.
But yeah, it's just. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it could be another chapter of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody will switch the rails for you.
Yeah, it's a situation where I would never just say flat out no.
Right.
But I'd be like, I need to know a lot more, and sort of set some ground rules in terms of this is how I work. Can you accept that sort of thing? I don't want to waste anyone's time.
Right.
Or give anyone false impressions of what I might be able to do for them. So yeah, and that's always my biggest concern. I certainly don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or waste anyone's time because I'm such a spaz.
Yeah. Well, again, you're an artist, or you're a creator or a creative, and so to be continued. You'll if it happens, it happens. If the space opens up, you can do that. But I don't think you should put yourself in a position where you're like, I hate this, man, this sucks. Even though there's a paycheck at the end of this, or whatever temptation there might be, or your name on a screen or whatever. I guess it's not worth it to have to feel that inner conflict, or feel, it's because you're not in your space to create at that point. You're not flow state, as they say, so to be continued. But on a similar note, you have a background, your day job of ostensibly working with the mediascape and video. And so can we open that up, and we'll segue into that?
So, I mean, film, I mean, we call them making movies. It's always been a passion of mine. As a kid, me and my friends in our teenage years, we used to make short films. We had access to some video gear from my dad. And we made a bunch of just terrible movies. The best one, we redid it a bunch of times. Attack of the Killer Garbage Bags. So it gives you an idea of our budget. We use garbage bags for monsters filled with paper, and throwing at each other and shooting them with guns. So
nice. Hey, here's to no budget films. That's there's a lot of anyway.
So yeah, that side of things. So on the television side, it was an interest of mine. So I went into college for television broadcasting. Out of that, I actually ended up working with a video duplication company, and sort of started at the bottom. And we were just duplicating just VHSs, just labeling VHSs, all that stuff. I went from that. We started sort of a new media. Well, you can call it a division, but it was literally just a computer at that point, where we started getting into video compression, disc duplication, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'd been with the company from 1998 to 2018. Yeah, so it was 20 years. And they decided that the bosses decided they were done. And the industry had changed to a point where it wasn't becoming really feasible to stay open. And they basically offered, like, do you guys want to take over? It was basically me, my brother, and another friend of mine, Kim. And we're like, okay, well, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it sort of took off. But at this point, what's interesting is, we had tons of broadcast gear, like videotapes and stuff, videotape decks used by broadcasters and stuff like that. We're just gathering dust. We're at a point now where these tapes are so old, people want to digitize them now.
Okay.
Because the tapes are starting to fall apart. So all these old decks that we have are suddenly getting used all over again. We're digitizing stuff.
Okay.
So that's sort of the majority of our work. The stuff that I take care of on the side is closed captioning for the hearing impaired, and subtitling, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So anyway, all that to say, I'm so done doing this job.
Yeah. Okay.
And financially, I'm in a situation where I can start making music full time. I mean, I'm going to be living a very frugal lifestyle, but I always have. So it's really not that much of a change. And it's because, I guess we should go back a bit. When I started releasing my music, I was literally just giving everything away for free. Like, there was no even an option. You couldn't even buy it. It's like the only option was you download it for free. That's it. And then I was getting people bugging me going, I want a way to give you money. And I'm like, no, just download the music.
Right.
And more and more people are like, just getting random emails every once in a while, like, can I pay for this somehow? And then so I set up a PayPal donate button. I'm like, there you go. And I was surprised how much money was coming through that.
Wow.
And then I had more people going, can you put your stuff on Spotify? Can you put it up on Bandcamp? I'm like, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
I did that. And suddenly I just started getting all this money. Well, I mean, not tons of money, but making money.
Flowing revenue.
Flowing in from a lot of my back catalog, basically. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Well, cool.
Yeah, so this could lead to something. This could
lead to something.
This could have a future for me. What a wonderful problem to have. Right? It's not even a problem. Well, sure. What a proposition to have in front of you.
I consider myself extremely lucky to be in that position, because I know there's a lot of people out there exactly like me trying to find a listener base. Yeah, it's not easy.
No,
like, don't ask me how or why it happened to me, because I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is, I've been pretty consistent in terms of my releases, in that I'm releasing 2 to 4 albums a year. So there's always sort of something new to listen to.
Okay.
So I guess I'm keeping people's attention, I guess.
And that's relevance is important too in that sense. I think.
So anyway, 2022 is the beginning of the rest of my life, and I'm gonna hopefully be making music till the day I die, basically.
Nice.
Consider myself extremely lucky to be able to
do
that.
Yeah, and like you said, there's an ocean of people out there putting things together. It's actually fun to if you have a rainy day or whatever, to go onto some of these free music sites and just dig around. I found Blair Moon the other day from, I think, the Czech Republic, and they're pretty decent. And there's some composers out there where the music's very personal and it doesn't really click with me, but I'm sure they have. But some of the stuff out there is really amazing. So you're right, and it's just like the broader spectrum of the music industry. There are people playing in bars for $70 a night, tips or whatever, and they're so amazingly talented and they have, good musicianship, but there are hacks making $100 million a year with auto tune and
It is
writers, and
frustrating.
it really is.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
But that's the reality of it,
Actually, that would be a good segue to go into talk about Robot Party.
Okay. Yeah, Burlart.
So people may not know, I also have released music under a third name called Burlart, and it is completely different from my ambient stuff and my more electronic stuff. This is more of synthwave, very 80s, kind of 90s, sort of my own take on it. And in a way, it's some of it's a bit of a throwback to my old mod days from the 90s in terms of the sounds. I mean, not entirely, but it's sort of a throwback. I've only ever released one album. I did create a few singles before that album that are not really available anywhere. They're available on a really random YouTube page nobody knows about. Verlorg actually has a YouTube page, but I don't actually, because I plan on moving everything over to the Altus Music YouTube page, just because I want to just amalgamate everything. Anyway, so in 2016 I created an album called With You Without. And it actually has lyrics in some of the songs. It's all vocoder because I can't sing to save my life.
Yeah.
And so back in 2014, a good friend of mine, we were having lunch one day and we were talking about, this rather mediocre music from big names getting millions of views, and you listen to the music, you're like, there's nothing to this. This is trash.
Yeah, it's really basic.
But it's just, they have the clout, they have the publicity to sort of get it out there, and if people will, if it's easy to access, people will listen to it, and it'll become huge.
Kind of like fast food.
Yeah, exactly. So he had written lyrics for the song called Robot Party, and it's obviously not a serious song in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Given the title.
And he emailed me these lyrics and we laughed about it, and then it sort of fell off the wayside. And then earlier this summer, I'm like, we were talking about it again. I'm like, you know what? I'll just do it. Okay. So yeah, basically I November 1st, I'm releasing what I'm calling a digital 7-inch, so a 45. And it's two songs. So the main song is Robot Party, and then the flip side is an instrumental version that's it plays different. It's a little slower. I'm calling it the Outrun version. And I hope people enjoy it. It's very different, but it's a lot of fun. We've actually created a music video with another friend of mine, Sean, who did the filming and did a little puppeteering of this robot.
Oh, cool.
Party. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. It's
there you go.
Very silly. We'll see what people think of it, but yeah.
And when is that dropping again? Is that February?
November 1st,
November, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, November 1st. Oh, geez, that's next
Halloween.
Tuesday or something, Monday?
It's next Monday, yeah.
Monday, okay. Well, there you go. I'm getting the scoop here. We got the release. And that'll be premiering on your YouTube.
It's everywhere. Bandcamp, it'll be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, everywhere. Just type Burlork. Well, God, I realize you're spelling that out. I don't even remember how to pronounce or how to spell it.
I'll put it in the description field as part of your setup for your work as well. I guess a good segue here I'll have links to Mike's website, which is essentially a way to spider out to a lot of these other Bandcamp, Spotify, that kind of thing. And YouTube's discoverable on your website too, I believe, or you can click it out. Okay, so yeah, I'll make sure all of that's accessible there, and you can be there for the premiere, because this is about 3 days or so. What is today? Saturday. Yeah, 3 days before. So that'll be something to look forward to.
Yeah, so,
for sure. So going back to the Tornell Keep, and you're dipping your foot in the waters of writing. That was a cheesy setup, but let's go ahead and run with it.
Well, when I think back, I'm trying to remember when I released it.
It said 2013 as a publication date.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. Yeah, I remember I was just reading some books. I couldn't find anything that was grabbing me, and I don't know why I suddenly started writing.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I had no plan or what was going to happen. I just started writing, and um, yeah, I just totally got into it. Just so much fun.
Cool.
So it's basically two anti-heroes running from the law is really what the story's about for
Okay.
the most part.
Okay.
There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the
The
sort of the
thumbnail.
short, yeah,
Yeah.
the very very short thing. And in I did start working on a continuation because it did the story ends, but it's sort of a seed of an idea is given in the very last chapter that it could continue.
Okay.
And I started working on that, but I lost steam. I sort of wrote myself into a corner.
Oh, okay.
So,
And
but I do plan on again, since I'm going to have more time in the next,
yeah, it's true.
next year
That's true.
moving
Yeah.
into, I do want to sort of pick it up again and see if I can make it work because I like the idea. It's
Yeah.
the continuation is them trying to change their ways, trying to be on the right side of the law,
Okay.
but generally failing miserably because they keep just doing stupid shit.
Mm. Well, there you go.
So
Fallibility is good, or being vulnerable is good. So
yeah, I like
especially for an
to
anti-hero, it's part of what
yeah. Well,
drives
that's
that
it. That's it.
that
I want
that
I want to
character
make
role.
them. I want to make you care for them, but at the same time, you sort of shake your head and you're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, right. Did you really just do that?
Yeah.
And that's deeds of the past, right? I don't know if
Deeds of
I
the past.
deeds
Deeds
of
of
the
their
past.
past. Yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah.
their past. Okay.
Of their past. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and so there is a point in the book where they are, for lack of a better word, given a quest.
Mm-hmm.
They basically they found a way to sort of hide through magical means, but in order to do so, they need to get something for this person who's going to do it for them, and it involves them going to this abandoned keep called Tornell Keep. And it
Okay.
has a backstory to it, and like that. It's a dark backstory to it, and yeah. So that was the inspiration of the book. Created that song.
Mm,
Yeah.
nice. I think we've been talking about music so much, but writing is even more personal, like, and more accessible, I think, to people who are maybe at some point in their life where they either need to get something out or bring something in, to the psyche. And so I think that's awesome that you're exploring that part of yourself to write. And I've done it myself, and it'll probably never see the light of day. I've written a transcript, but it was a wonderful stream of consciousness for things I'm thinking about. And it's not fiction. It's not nonfiction either. It's just me thinking out loud.
Yeah.
But it was such a wonderful creative process. And I've done.
It's like journal writing, right?
It really
I
is.
know,
Yeah.
like I know a few people who do journal writing, and it just helps them collect their thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's an organizational thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I already have another manuscript I want to do, and it's kind of a continuation. So yeah, I think it's essential. And again, if it never surfaces, if it just stays on your hard drive or wherever your pen and pad, if you're a Luddite, yeah, I think it's just really a good. And somebody told me I should journal years and years ago, and I'm like, right, I'm Captain ADD here. But now that I'm slowing down and my metabolism is coming down a bit, that writing is actually is helpful for me. I'll never write personal things about myself, like whatever. But the any thoughts that are in your head, I think that's just such a great channeling process to explore that or be with that. And it slows things down. Like, we live in this modern world of contrivance, and so to get into that space, that landscape, I think is healthy for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned sort of keeping it to yourself. There's I've got a bunch of music that I've created that I never plan on releasing, not because it's absolutely terrible, but it's just like
personal.
It's not it's just it's not really personal. I don't really know how to put it, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Well, in terms of music, and we were talking about how music is the ability to create music is so accessible now. Um, it doesn't mean you should release everything you produce.
Mm.
Um, Especially when you're starting out, because you first impressions are everything.
No, that's yeah.
So it's a situation where I know I sort of went off on a tangent what you were talking about, but it came
Mhm.
to mind.
No, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're ever planning on making your own music, go to town, do whatever, but don't be afraid to wait years before you actually consider releasing anything
Hmm.
to the public, just because, like I say, yeah, first impressions are everything. And if you release something that isn't as good as you could possibly, or isn't as good as you might be able to produce, it's just gonna, if it just comes off as whatever, it's just another album, people listen to it and forget about it, sort of thing.
Hmm.
It's something worth mentioning, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because
And
I think about the music that I made. As I say, I mean, really, it was from '93 to 2001. 2001 is really sort of my starting point when I actually started releasing for real.
okay.
So it took me that long to get to that point, and even at that point, I know people that's 21. The album's called 24 Hours, and I do get I listen to it now and it's so cheesy,
Oh no.
but but I still have people to this day going, I love this album. Like,
Wow.
oh. So it's like, okay, well, some people can hear through it, I guess, and still appreciate what I was trying to convey.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
like I said, I sort of went off on a weird tangent there, but there you go.
Well, it's a good tangent in the sense that maybe we can start finalizing this conversation or wrapping it up with the idea of there people will be discovering and listening to this who are wanting to move into their own lab of music creation. Like I'm in that place right now where, again, just that you and I had a pre-meet a few days ago, and after finishing that conversation, I'm like, dude, it was staring me in the face the whole time. I've got Ableton Light over there. I'm sitting over here, on my one computer with Audacity and some stuff, and I'm like, I have so much fun with that. I get so lost in it. It's so simple, right? And
yeah,
but
it doesn't matter. Like whatever the tool is,
yeah,
it doesn't
it works.
matter.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. As long as you get in that state, yeah. But but that conversation just kicked my pants up to the next level where it's like, all right, now go figure out Ableton now, because Audacity is not that difficult. It's a little learning curve, but now go into Ableton or go into FL Studio if that's where I end up, and start really challenging yourself, and then import things that will challenge. And I'm ready for that to see if anything I can just kill a bunch of time and have fun with it, because it's a hobby. That's it.
It's like
great sport.
I try not to overthink too much. Just have fun with it, and
yeah.
You're gonna make mistakes. Things are gonna go wrong. It doesn't matter. Just chalk it up as a learning experience and move on. And just have fun with it. It's making music is so much fun. It's such a interesting way to express yourself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So to begin to bring this to a conclusion, could you do some like quick not quick, but just ABCs for people who are like, yeah, Mike's music really inspired me, and I don't know, like me, I don't know crap, right? So I just, so can you talk us through sort of the kit, and then getting yourself out in the salience landscape, or getting out into, say, what platforms might you suggest? Like, is it YouTube, or is it whatever? Anyway.
So my first thing I will say is don't limit where you post. Post to as many places as you can, because by doing so, you're going to have that many more people who only use a particular platform. They'll find you, So, so yeah, obviously, the big ones are like, in terms of streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and generally, like, to get into those, you need to use what's a digital distributor.
Okay.
Basically, they just act as a third party. You send the music to them, and they disseminate
Okay.
to all the distributors. It's a
Okay.
pretty easy process. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and they all have their pluses and minuses in terms of cost. And I would recommend going to one where it's either a flat monthly fee,
Mm-hmm.
or no, sorry, not a flat monthly fee.
Per unit or something.
Because the way it started was you would pay like $60 a year to have it up there. And the problem is, if you stop paying that, your music disappears from these sites. So, so one that I use is called Sounddrop. The way they work is you post. Well, they recently changed it, of course, but the way it was you posted up for free, and all they did is they took a cut off any music. So there was you didn't have to pay anything up front, which is really what you want, especially as a new artist, because if you're paying a lot of money, you're never like, unless you get really lucky, it's going to be really hard to make your money back unless you're, well known or something like that. So by going with these platforms where they're just taking a bit off the top, and it's not really it's not costing you anything to post, then you can make some money back basically pretty quick. And that's how Bandcamp works. Bandcamp takes a 15% cut of anything you make. It doesn't cost anything to use the platform. I mean, they do have a pro version, but you don't need it. But yeah, definitely YouTube. YouTube is huge. And I know some people post to SoundCloud. I used to post to SoundCloud. I haven't really done that anymore. There are a lot, but my point being is the more the better. Don't limit yourself to one platform or a small number of platforms. And sorry, what was the other question you asked? I apologize.
Oh, no. It's just, tips for beginners kind of thing. And so I might at this point take that opportunity to say, remind people what you said earlier about Altus and Loanword, and come up with a name that, Google your name, Google your potential name. So it's not Acme or something like that.
Trying to find a good name that isn't taken is really hard, but take the time, or just use your name. Just use your actual name and release under your name. That's a surefire way to there's probably not gonna, it's like if I released under Mike Cars, I'd be probably pretty safe. But I always found I always preferred using a sort of moniker instead of my name.
Right.
But take the time to, like you say, Google
get a good name.
Search on Discogs to see if there's any search artist names there to make sure there's no one using that name. Because it gets really messy on if you're posting up on Spotify and stuff like that, because what they'll do they'll just lump everyone's music together, all these different artists together under one name, and it just makes for a mess.
That is a hot mess.
So that's another big reason why you want to make sure that your name is original as possible. Even if it comes down to taking a word and spelling it slightly differently, maybe, or I don't know. There's a bunch of different things you can do. None of them are great, but
but do your homework on that first on the front end. That makes sense. That makes sense. It was talking about names for your project. Reminds me that Henry Rollins, back in the early 90s, he and Jello Biafra did comedy, but they called it spoken word because that's edgier and cooler than comedy, right? So, but they would literally go to a club and they would do stand up for 40 minutes, and some of it was really good. Jello Biafra had some, but they're both real snarky humor. But I remember Henry Rollins was like, names for bands, and just look it up because I won't do it any justice. And it's been 30 years since I've listened to it, but he was just coming up with these really absurd names. And don't be the 535th band to name yourself Fraud or something like that. And then he came up like the John Wayne on Acid or something like that. Come up with something really not. So it's a great riff. But anyway, I was thinking about that when we were just talking about that. So
that's it. It's I'm sure it's always been a problem. It's always been a problem. Talk about branding. I really try and talk about branding. I've got my little Altus logo. And I make a point of putting it everywhere. I really want it to be recognizable.
Yeah.
Sort of a short form of seeing, oh, this is that music sort of thing. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah, it sounds kind of corporatey, but creating a brand for yourself, I feel, is important in terms of just, it gives you a sense of legitimacy, I guess. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and it expands the salience because
Yeah.
that's how our brains work. We see the Nike swoosh or the
Yeah.
Coke in its font. I mean, it's just immediately exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
You could even write the word fraud in the Coke letters, and it'll be like, oh,
Coke. Yeah.
it's Coca-Cola, right? Even though it says fraud, it's Coca-Cola. But yeah, I mean, that's the genius behind that and you don't have to go the full goose corporate on it. You just have that trick to help get your salience out or get people to see you.
Create a consistent image.
Yeah.
Try and either in your design, like, if you're doing design for your cover art or something like that, if you have a consistent look to it, I know a lot of labels do that. Again, it's like a short form. You look at it, you go, oh, that's from that label, and you're suddenly interested in it, as opposed to if it was just some random thing. If you glance at it, through social media or whatever, you're scrolling through so fast, unless something catches your eye, you might miss something that you would otherwise enjoy. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's good of you to share that, because again, you did surface from the vast ocean of people producing music and generating content. So that's great that you can do that. And I would also amend that you have on your YouTube channel some very generous insights into music creation and your process, again, using FL Studio. So I would highly recommend that people go there. And
because that's it. I had over the years I have emails where people go, oh, what tools do you use? Again, the people who are trying to just glean some insight because they're interested in it, and it's just like, so I just took the time to make a few of these videos so that just it's a lot easier to show rather than type an email just explaining it.
Much easier. So I highly recommend that if there are people with us still in the conversation that are taking notes, that's where you go, is to watch some of his tutorials, or at least explaining what he's doing, what's going on, because that's I'm going to watch a bunch of that. And of course, I think just in the overall scheme of things, that if you Google, or if you go onto YouTube for FL Studio, or you go on there for Ableton, which I was doing the other day after talking to you, that there's a wealth of information. Everybody loves to put that kind of content out.
Oh yeah. For any DAW, you can't go wrong. I mean, YouTube. I mean, where would we be without YouTube? What a tool. I mean.
Oh, I know.
It's amazing.
For every inane cat video, there's like 5 or 6. There's a ratio there of really informative things, and it's democratized, right? And anybody can do it, and so then you can cross over to see somebody else's take on it and see if the other guy was full of crap or whatever.
Exactly.
It's a good exploration. So well, Mike, why don't we leave? We can call this part 1, and maybe we can come back some other time and have more conversation. But we've left them with a lot to take in, and I enjoyed the conversation because, like I said, your music is, to me, is lovely in a sense that I use it for meditation, and it's it's a universal package of compositions. You have a lot of different. You're not stuck in one genre, so it's nice that you're moving forward into 2022. You're going to be doing more of the same, where you have this sort of multi-pronged production output, and that's awesome. So
I just hope not to. It's actually a fear that I have, releasing too much music.
Okay. No, I get that.
I mean, I already have too much music. When you look at my discography, it just keeps going and going, and it's just like, some people may look at that and be like, I don't even know where to start. I'm not even bother.
Well, but once somebody gets the bug, right? Like, I got the bug with maybe Interspace or something like that. Then I just get curious, and there's things, you can handle this. There's things I'm not interested in, and I just move on. And that's the beauty about, and I know you just tweaked your website recently. It seems like it's been updated and formatted a little differently, but you can still go through and sample music. And I'm ruthless about that. I just boop, 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 and I sample. But then when I find something I like, I just stop, and I'm like, I sit there catatonic for about 10 minutes, like, holy shit, that was great. That one's coming with me,
Yeah.
So I invite people to do that. Go to his website,
Yeah.
and of course, everything will be down below for that. But yeah, I mean, you've got a diverse catalog, and but I would counter what you just said by saying that you've got history behind that. So it's not like you produced everything since 2018. You go back, like you said, to the early 2000s, at least in your catalog on the website. So that's nigh on 20 years, man.
Yep.
Since you've been producing
That's it.
that, you are owed that, because I mean, there are bands, I don't know, Radiohead or some of these groups that I guess my cat wants to be in there. Let's get this out of the way. You're rubbing. If you hear sounds on the microphone, we have a cat now invading, photobombing. Yes, don't rub the mic too much. No, you're knocking it over now. Thank you. Yes, live television. But yeah, I mean, you've got a comprehensive catalog, and so I say that, like, take pride in that, Mike. You worked hard, and it's been a long time.
I do, yeah.
So.
But at the same time, that in the back of my mind, this is sort of like, it's too much.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm gonna stop. I can't stop. Like making music is my reason for living. Like, why? There's no way I could stop.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have said Radiohead. I don't know. There's bands out there that turn a lot of content out. Oh, I do too. Oh, one of my favorite. I saw them in 2004 with Supergrass, and that was blown my mind. Yeah, I love. But they have a catalog, and it's all good. To me, I love Radiohead, so it's all good content. But yeah, I mean, they're prolific producers. Let me just try it that way. I don't know, but anyway, it's meaningful content, and that's where I put you in that same.
And that's what I guess what I'm trying to say. I want each release to have impact, to have meaning. I don't want something to just be released because I just made this music.
And you're shuffling it out. Every 60 days, you're getting new content. Yeah, right. No. Yeah. So it's your feeling about the timing. I think you intuitively know, and I'd say the cadence of the releases is not bad. I don't know what the standard is, but I'd say you're what do you do? Maybe 2, maybe 3 albums a year.
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
So starting in 20, like I imagine I'm going to be releasing at least a new album quarterly. It might be a situation where I might do more double albums. So I'll be like, it's a release, but it's like 2 CDs worth. So it's like more music, because I'm going to have so much more time.
Yeah.
And actually, excuse me, I guess that brings up a good thing, because I'm sort of considering doing a subscription type of thing on Bandcamp. Because I fully expect I'm going to be releasing or creating a lot more music than I'll be comfortable releasing through albums, regular albums. So what I might do is sort of like the B-sides, or just like alternate versions of stuff that I created or whatever, I might release in albums, but through a subscription model.
Like an exclusive content kind of setup.
Yeah. Because again, here's the thing. I mean, to make this work, I do need to make enough money to live, right?
Oh yeah.
So, and I know I definitely have some listeners who are big supporters, like especially through Bandcamp, because that allows people to go, I want to pay this much money instead of the stated cost. And some people spend a lot of, like, for one album they'll be like, here's $20. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, my God. But I get, they're passionate for the music. It's so humbling, Jesus.
Oh yeah. Well,
but my point being is, like, I know there's people out there who really like my music and want it to succeed. So I, through a subscription service type of thing, it allows them to get something extra. That's, special, I guess. And for
now
payment to keep the lights on.
Yeah. And tying that together with what we were talking about branding a minute ago, are you planning sort of a kind of a PR or promotional campaign, I guess, lack of better words, for the coming year? And so to sort of have your this emergence being I'm stumbling on my words, but you're going to shill yourself to this new concept.
No, I definitely plan on sort of posting the information sort of anywhere and everywhere, just to let people know. It's like, this is what's happening now. So you're going to see a shift in terms of, there's going to be a lot more music. again, since I have more time, because the last 20 years I've just been producing this music over the week on weekends, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So being able to so now I'll have my weekends back, and I'll
Yeah.
be producing music during the week,
Right.
which
You're
is
gonna
going to be an interesting shift in itself.
flip it. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
But yeah, yes, I absolutely plan on sort of
Good. Good. I think
filling
that'll
everyone
be.
in, and just I want to create excitement in
Yeah.
that. It's like the sky's the limit, it's like, who knows what's going to happen in these next few years in terms of the music I'm going to be releasing, because I'm going to have so much more time to really spend and tweak and fine tune and do,
Of course.
I'm very excited.
Of course. Good. Good. You should be, because
Yeah.
to be able to do something that you flow with, I think we should all aspire to that. I don't know how we can escape the drudgery of certain needs of our society. Like, we all have,
Oh yeah.
there's work out there, but to those who are willing to roll the dice, because there's another side to it, that if you can do that, I think that's just so amazing, to like what you're doing. And then you find people historically who have done well by being in their passion and being with that which they enjoy. So
Yeah.
be good.
So we'll see how it goes, but
yeah.
I feel good. I feel good about it, obviously.
Good. And again, we can check in with you, and so we'll give it a year of
Sure.
your stepping out and doing this new, and it's not even a new endeavor. It's just sort of expanding the time space of the endeavor. Yeah. So and to see what that does, and there could be writing involved there too, because you've got Monday through Friday now, and maybe Thursdays will be writing day.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the thought. So
how about you're having been sort of with the business that you're getting ready to leave, visual art. Are you at all moved by in marrying visuals with your audio work? Is that something you've thought about too? That'll keep you. So in other words, that's Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday writing, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Photography obviously plays. I really enjoy photography. I mean, if you look at my cover art, I would say like 95% of the stuff is art and design that I've created.
Okay.
So, and I stopped doing it, but on YouTube I used to do little promo videos, and those were very sort of creative in their own way, sort of thing. But yeah, it was a situation where I really didn't have as much time as I wanted to do those sort of things. I may go back and consider doing sort of little video trailers or something like that, just as a promotional tool type of thing. Since again, I'm just gonna have so much more time.
That's it. And so I'm sort of channeling where you might be through myself, and I'm thinking, oh well, if I had 5 days a week or whatever to be with myself and my creativity, I would start looking at the oblique other aspects of media or art or whatever, to bring it into what you're known for. So anyway, that's wide open.
It's to have the time to just, like you say, contemplate concepts and ideas without other things getting, like, your day job getting in the way.
Life gets
or just life in general.
Right.
That's a big one, because how many times have I been sitting at my desk doing work, and I'm like inspired, but it's like I don't have time to stop and
go off on that.
Do that. And it's just like, how many times does that happen? So I'm looking forward to being inspired and being okay. Well, I'm just gonna head down to the studio and just start doing that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you, because that's just again,
appreciate it.
What a wonderful opportunity to have that flexibility or ability. I'm not sure.
No, it's the flexibility.
To be able to do that. So, and hopefully that inspires other people, because, and
always,
again, to go to society at large, I think, we're seeing opportunities with having gone through our pandemic, that working at home or doing, novel, stumbling on my words, generation of revenue is come more to the fore, and I think that should be explored too. So anyway, well, Mike, it's been a beautiful journey, a great conversation, discovering your
really
music.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
As we said before we hit record, I think, your first discovery is going to be the people who really follow what you do. And I hope they enjoyed that. Also, people who may be coming here for the first time or just heard of you and they're just getting in. Hopefully this is informative and people get to know you through this interview. So
and it's a situation where if you've actually lasted this long right to the end, thanks for your interest.
I know. And I've heard other podcasters say that, or people who do production, they're just like, if you're still with us, and I say that too, I'm like, thank you. And so yes, to those of you who are still on board, you're good folks, because we live in an ADD world, and I'm ADD, but I love these long form conversations. It's usually anytime I hop on a podcast or whatever on YouTube, I'll sit through 3 hours or 4 hours. It doesn't bother me. But anyway, thank you to those of you who are still with us. And hopefully this was a good exploration. So Mike, we'll check in with each other. We'll stay in touch, of course, because I know I've talked to you that if my little project takes off, my thing that I want to do Monday through Friday, I want to bring you in, and it's either going to be, as you suggest on your website, and you said during the conversation, I can take segments of what you do and incorporate it to my work, or if you feel like original content, leave that little window crack. Leave the window crack, because
it's never no. It's always just that caveat of I'm a spaz, so just be aware. But so
well, I would never impinge on the creative process. What I would do is send you a Creole of your work and say, this is the shit that really sends me, man. So if this inspires you, that's great. Or if you have another idea, just send it to me and let me know, and we'll talk it. So anyway, we'll to be continued on that for sure. But again, it's been a great conversation. I'll say goodbye to you after we stop recording. And again, everybody still on board with us, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.